So, I'm trying to think of what I should talk about today, and the question hit me because I remember talking to my friend, I think it was last day, it was the day before yesterday. We were talking about, we were asking random questions, or we were answering random questions from like the Google. Yeah, because there's like question generator, and then we were answering random question from that like question generator thingy, like topic generator. And then one question that we tried to answer was what's the best piece of advice that you've ever received? And I've been thinking about it because there's a lot of advice that I've received, you know, throughout my life, and I'm trying to think of what I'd consider the best like I said, there are multiple advices that I've received, you know, ranging from the advice that I've received from my mom, advice that I received from different types of like things, advice from cooking, advice from life in general. But my answer was the advice that I've learned, or that I've received from Dr. Jordan B Peterson throughout watching his, you know, lectures in the internet. Because I've been not studying, but, you know, listening to his lecture and learning from his lecture. I've adopted or applied this advice to my life, and the advice states that, you know, set your house in perfect order before you go out and criticize the world. And it's an interesting advice, you know, it's an interesting advice because you can think of it as like metaphorically, you can think of it as a metaphor for focus on yourself first before you know, what would you say, before you try and, I don't know, meddling, I don't know, before you try and get into the business of others, basically. That's what the advice is telling you. And it's a cool advice because I've been studying Stoic philosophy for quite a while now. I've been studying Stoic philosophy, and in that philosophy there's like these doctrines and shit that I at least try to apply to my myself, to my life. And one of these doctrines is that you should just focus on the things that you can control, rather than the things that is beyond your control. Like, for example, the things in your control is like your actions, your ideas, your thoughts, how you conduct yourself in the world. That's within your control. That's because, you know, it is you. It's how you act, rather than, you know, trying to change others, trying to change the structure of reality, things like those. And it's a very interesting idea because, you know, it's in a way profound, because a lot of people nowadays, like, they're trying to change the world, they're trying to change other people, they're trying to change the government and whatnot, trying to change the countries and how things are. But it's actually a wrong way of doing it, because first of all, you are not what you could be. Like, you could be a lot better, and you're in no place whatsoever to I guess judge or to change the world. I take me for example, I definitely could be better. I am not the best that I can be, and that I have no place to try and change other people. So why not just change yourself, improve yourself, focus onto yourself, improve your own individual rather than focusing on other people and other things and on things that are beyond your control. And I think it's an underrated idea. I think it's an idea or advice rather that most people just sleep upon. They just sleep on it rather. I've always had this idea because I remember when I was in elementary grade school, I remember one of my teacher gave this advice, sort of like a way to, I don't know, because back then we were so noisy, like the whole class was noisy, and the officers are trying to like stop the noisy people, you know, they're trying to like sway them, things like those. They started to scold them, but nothing really happens. And my teacher told us, if you want the class to behave, start with yourself. If each and every one of you start with yourself, then sooner rather than later, the entire class will behave. And that's a profound idea, you know. And if you apply that to the extreme, like for example in the entire world, is that if each and every one of us were to start with yourself, start improving yourself, start bettering ourselves, improving ourselves better than we were before, like making ourselves better than we were before, then we're simultaneously making the world a better place than it was before. So yeah, it's a great, you know, advice, a great idea to like live by, is to just focus on the things you can control, you have direct influence, and just leave. My dog is like fucking freaking out. And just leave the things the way they are, because once you have improved yourself enough, once you better yourself enough to the point where you're in the place to make a change in the world, then and only then will you be able to change the world, because now it is within your control, or at some point it's going to be within your control, or maybe not control, but direct influence. So yeah, very interesting idea, and I think at the moment that's like the best piece of advice that I've received. Yeah. And another thing is that when I started applying that to myself, I was liberated, you know, because now I'm not thinking of this, I'm not anymore thinking of other things. Like I'm focusing on what my priorities are, and my priorities are myself, you know, bettering myself, adopting more responsibilities, telling the truth and whatnot. Those are now my priorities, and all the other garbage are like taken out of the equation, so to speak. And it's awesome. I've been more peaceful. I've been more like I've channeled my inner peace. I've now have less things to think about. It's awesome. It's awesome. So yeah, set your house in perfect order before you go and criticize the world. Best piece of advice.